Welcome to Let's Talk, our podcast series produced and delivered to you by Hazel and Betty Ford. I'm your host, William C. Moyers. Thank you for joining us today. Joining us for a story of hope, a story of healing, a story featuring Mike Heuerman, who stepped from the shadow of his own struggle with substances into the bright light of recovery, and who stands up and speaks out today as a beacon of hope for others. Mike, welcome.
Thank you, William. It's a pleasure it's absolutely a pleasure to be here. So thank you and thank everybody who makes this work. It's truly an honor to be back here with you, and just a blessing all around to be still associated with Hazelden, which truly gave me my life back. So again, it's a blessing. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I remember the first time I ever met you and how impressed I was. We were with the Surgeon General of the United States, Dr. Jerome Adams, and you were there as one of our young advocates. And I was just very impressed, candidly, by your, how tall you are, for one thing, and just your presence, your poise, and your conviction, your passion. Tell us a little bit about your story, Mike.
Well, thank you very much, William. Thank you for saying that. And I greatly and vividly remember that day to this day. It was a wonderful day, and it was filled with a lot of hope and a lot of joy all around. But yeah, regarding me, I went to inpatient treatment coming up on five years ago at the Plymouth location. And Plymouth location, in other words, like in a way, the right hand of the Hazel and Betty Ford Foundation. And I actually drove myself from the University of Notre Dame to where I'm currently at right now, just off campus. And I drove roughly 8.5 hours overnight, and then checked into treatment the next day, kind of as my last whim to go get help and change my life, save my life, because I knew I was not in a place of decency to move forward. So yeah, I was there in Minnesota with you guys for about a year and a half. I did everything that my counselors and everybody suggested, and I truly to this day feel like I couldn't be obviously more thankful, but I always want to be as involved in anything that I possibly can, because I know there are a lot of people like myself out there that either are still actively struggling or have a loved one, and truly I just know there's a lot of good that can be done and that is being done, and it all centers around Hazel. And so there's a special place in my heart for the foundation and everybody within it.
Mike, you're at Notre Dame now. You said now you were a student there at the time that you drove yourself to help. What was the substance you were struggling with as a student athlete?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I was a student athlete. I played football at Notre Dame. I had a number of hip surgeries, number of core surgeries, and therefore I became heavily addicted and dependent on opiates and the painkillers I was just naturally prescribed, that come with a lot of surgeries and whatnot and injuries. And it was kind of one of those things, once my brain latched onto that, once that disease took place, that it just slowly took over everything in my life. But yeah, so I was a student. I was trying to finish my last semester when I actually drove to Minnesota. And I withdrew from school, drove to Minnesota. I was supposed to just have a check-in with a counselor. It was a Friday morning at like 10 a.m. And I just laid it all on the line, and kind of opened up and broke down. And thankfully, they were able to get me in. I called my parents like 10 minutes later after they told me they could get me in, and all the above. And truly, it was a spiritual blessing right there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, moral of the story regarding that, I came back actually after I was roughly about a year and a half, 2 years sober. I came back to finish my last semester. So I graduated class of 2020. The football program, athletic department chose to honor my scholarship, which was amazing. And I just couldn't be more blessed. And it's a similar thing with Hazelden, where I just want to be as involved with campus and our our youth and our student athletes that are still there, and college students that are there as much as possible. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, thanks for asking that.
What are you doing exactly now?
So I work, I actually just recently took a position with, so it's a story for another day, but I took a position that puts me as the VP of Business Development for two different companies that are associated with the university. And both of them are centered around recovery and sobriety, which is, I think, remarkable. And I could not be more excited about it. I was on a few meetings and business calls this morning. And yeah, so again, it's that same centered mentality of helping others and just trying to bring good to those, and bring good and awareness to those that are, that have been unfortunately impacted by this disease. So, yeah.
Mike, how old were you when you sought treatment at Hazel and Betty Ford?
I was 20. Let's see, I'm 27 now. So yeah, I was 22. 22. Yeah, I think I was 23 right on the dot. And that's when I drove myself there. But yeah, I don't know. It the last few years of my life though, single-handedly has been the best years of my life, hands down. It's the best decision I've ever made. I truly do not think I would be alive today if it weren't for me finding Hazel Bend and me getting the help that you guys were able to provide. So I get emotional thinking about it because it's truly there's nothing really to this day that means just about as much as that does.
Yeah, Mike, so what is your message to young people who are struggling with substances? I mean, it sounds to me like it's possible to find recovery early on, and it's possible to have fun and have a fulfilling life without substances as a young person.
Absolutely. And I think you put the nail on the head there. But I guess my message would be kind of just be good to yourself, and recognize that, and you learn this, and it's much more appreciated kind of in society these days, but you recognize that addiction is a disease, and that it just happens, and obviously there's a big deep science down that path. But what I'm getting at is don't be afraid of one, the disease. Don't be afraid of the word addiction or addict, and don't be afraid of rehab. I say treatment. I say rehab because I got the treatment, I got the rehab, and I was, terrified. And then I got a month in, and I wanted to stay for another 2 months. And then I went to the Center City location, and I was supposed to be there for 2 weeks. I stayed for 3.5 weeks. And then I moved back to St. Paul, was doing outpatient at our St. Paul location. And then I was back to Center City again for another 2.5 weeks, just because, I love the environment, the growth, and I think that's truly priceless. So,
Yeah.
But yeah.
Mike, I'm intrigued by when we were prepping for this, you emphasized that you wanted to make sure that I did this interview and introduced you by your full name, not Mike H., but by Mike Heuerman. Why is that?
Because I would say it's truly because it's who I am, and it doesn't matter if I want the world to associate my name with sobriety and with recovery, and that it doesn't matter. In other words, whether I'm doing something here or I'm at the grocery store or on campus, I'm proud to have sobriety and Hazelden and recovery with me and behind me, regardless of where I am, because it's at my core, it's at my identity. And therefore, I don't know, I think it adds to the whole, bigger picture being proud and being, okay with who you are, with
Yes.
what's happened
Yes.
to you, whether it's good or bad. And again, it goes back to kind of the message to the youth of just be good to yourself and appreciate kind of who you are and the growth that you are able to do actively and even through some of the darkest times.
So using your full names means it's easy for people to find you. As you walk the campus or as you walk the community, as you do the advocacy work that you do, what kind of requests, what do people ask you or say to you?
Well, surprisingly, I've had a lot of people reach out that, whether it's themselves personally that have experienced addiction or a loved one. I've had many people reach out in either, face-to-face encounters or through social media and just share a little bit of a story about how they came across my story and what that kind of meant to see. Not like my story is all sorts of special, but just to see that, it's okay, and that there's awareness there and outreach that brings, again, a normalcy to the whole addiction state of mind, if you would. And so, yeah, I think it's remarkable to be able to see some of those things and see, and again, it's kind of an up and down thing, but yeah, unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there, almost everybody, either themselves or a loved one or a friend has struggled, and to be able to connect with them and I guess in a way, share some inspiration, show that there is a path forward and there is a way that they can change their lives, and get the help they need, is again, something I would consider as priceless. So.
Do you have tough moments as a young man in recovery? And I assume that you self-disclose that you recover from opioids and that dynamic of craving in the mind must be a little tricky. What's that like?
Absolutely. And that's a great question, William. And I appreciate you asking that. Because again, just like anybody and everybody, we all have some days that, are better than others. But I would say that, again, so my identity is rooted because I was able to redefine myself. I should say I was able to identify myself when I got clean. And therefore, at the core of that is my sobriety. So it doesn't matter if I'm walking past a bar or if somebody, it doesn't matter if something is in the wind and I smell something. The way I see it is, it's got to be something to where, like the chair that's in the room over there, I can't let that chair dictate kind of how I am and my way of life and what I know is best for me. But yeah, so some days are better than others, but I don't know. I love myself. I love the life that I lead every single day, and truly, I wouldn't trade that for anything in the world. So even when some days are easier than others, it's not substances or going to use that are on my mind. Thankfully, it took a good amount of time to get there. But I would say, yeah, I'm very thankful to not have to, struggle daily with thoughts to go use. As time goes on, those get a little bit, less consistent. But again, I'm proud of the person I am, and I know that my brain, with the disease, does not respond well to mind-altering chemicals. So, and that's okay with me. And I live a very positive and happy life to where I thankfully do not need substances to get me through, which is, if you would back up 5 years ago, and if I could hear myself say that, I would say no way, know. And it's incredible. So
yeah. Last question, because we got to go, but to leave on the message of hope, because yours is indeed a story of hope. What is your counsel? What is your key message to somebody who might be tuning in today, certainly is tuning in today, who is struggling and not certain what to do, scared to take that first step? What's your message to them, Mike?
I would say just, breathe and again, be good to yourself, and recognize that you're not going to come up with all the answers in one night. So, be patient and believe in yourself and just know that there is another path that you can take. And again, don't be scared of some of the work that are in recovery that, 20, 25 years ago might have worried or scared people. For recovery is truly, as you mentioned, about hope. And therefore, I would say just trust yourself and trust that part of your brain that is telling you need help, and use that as your lifeline, just as I did. I try to talk myself. If I would have waited and driven to Hazelden on a Monday rather than that Friday, I would have been like, I'll just drive Monday. I would have talked myself out of it, or something would distract me, and I'd be like, I don't really need to go. But yeah, trust that part of your brain, and there's no shortage of content out there that you can educate yourself on pre and post treatment when it comes to recovery. And just like your book was, I read your book when I was in treatment. But thank you. Those are all incredible questions, William. And I thank you guys so much for having me here with you and everybody who makes this work, and then the whole night. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome, but thank you for making that first step 5 years ago and driving yourself on that Friday to the answer, to the solution. Also for standing up and speaking out and being a face and a voice with a first name and a last name for the advocacy work that's so important in smashing that stigma and promoting a story of hope. Mike, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much.
And thanks to all of you for joining us for another edition of Let's Talk. On behalf of our executive producer, Lisa Stangl, and the Cracker Jack crew of Blue Moon Productions in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, I'm glad to be part of that team as well, and I'm glad that you all have joined us for another story of hope. We'll see you again.